We are midway through the year, and I would like you to ask yourself one simple question, which is, how are you doing? Seriously, how are you doing? Hello, and welcome back to Cozy with Chelsea, a podcast to nourish your mind, body, and soul. I am Chelsea, your host, and today I want to talk about how to have a mid-year reset, but one where we're actually incredibly honest with ourselves and we get really clear and really intentional about how we want the rest of the year to look like. So tell me, well, you can't actually tell me, but you could comment. How are you actually feeling? If you were to check in with yourself, knowing that it's July, we're halfway through the year, and if you were being really, really honest, how would you say that you're doing? I think that's a really good indicator of where we're at so that we can reflect, recalibrate, adjust, and have a different intent moving forward. Maybe, right? Unless you enjoy your current state of being. We always talk about getting really clear on what we want the year to look like in January. Obviously, it's a new year. We have new beginnings. We get all excited. We have all these things we want to accomplish. And then, it's been 6 months since the beginning of the year. And sometimes we could feel deflated. We could feel like we're not on track with all of our goals. And if we were to look back to our January goals, maybe we would understand why. Maybe some of those goals weren't realistic. Or maybe we've changed from the person that we were in January. This is something that's really interesting about goal setting or visualizing or having certain intentions is you could be a very different person than you were 6 months ago. Or you could have had so many things change in your life that those goals don't even matter anymore. It could be that we have an entirely different selection of things we want to accomplish or do or feel or see or be. So if we could just give ourselves permission to have a mid-year reset in the first place, right? We're allowed to reset and readjust and recalibrate. Also, this is not a mid-year reset, productivity, optimize my entire life episode. This is about getting really, really honest with yourself and identifying where we want to fine tune or completely switch things up. So let's get into it. Now, I actually love a mid-year reset, maybe even more than a January 1st New Year goal setting, though I do love that too. But I like the mid-year reset because if we're thinking about time in a linear way, right? If we're looking at 2026, we have data now. So if we had goals or overarching themes for this year, then if we are 6 months into it, that gives us some data. What's working? What's not working? How are we feeling about things? What has changed or shifted? And how can we align better with what our original goals were if those are still relevant, or change them entirely if that's what is called for. If you're feeling like you're not on track, quotation marks, I want to talk about that because like I mentioned before, if we had goals that we set in January and you feel like you're not on track with those goals, then what we're assuming is that January version of you had it all figured out. She knew what you needed in July. She knew what you needed in December of this year. And I think the issue here is that we shift and we change and our environment changes and our life changes and the world changes. And we have to oftentimes readjust and recalibrate according to those changes. So my point here is if you're feeling like you're not on track with the version of you that your January self thought you would be, it's okay. It's okay. And right now is an opportunity to get clear again and have new intentions for what that second half of the year is going to look like based on the data that we have. So the real question here isn't how do I get back to my original plan? It's more of who am I now And what does the second half of the year look like according to the current version of me? Another piece here is the nervous system, and this is so important when we're trying to get clear or asking ourselves these large questions, because we're not going to find the answers that we're looking for if we're in a dysregulated state. If we're in fight or flight, we are going to catastrophize the first half of the year. You might end up setting goals from anxiety or based in fear, or you might be writing down what you think you should want instead of what you actually want, right? So we're missing alignment if we're dysregulated. So before you do any sort of mid-year reset, I would highly recommend just having some sort of nervous system regulating practice. For me, that often looks like breath work. And something very, very, very simple you could do is just take a moment, breathe in for 4 counts, breathe out for 6 counts, and just do that until it feels good. For me, it's usually a few minutes of that at the most, and I'm already in a better place than I was before I started. If you want to do it now with me, we could do that. So if you're driving, don't close your eyes. If you're not driving, you're good. Okay, so just breathe in for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Out for 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Out for 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then you can just kind of keep repeating that until you're in a calmer space, like I am now. All right. Now, once we've settled in, we can look back. And when we are looking back at the first half of the year, we are not looking back to judge ourselves or even evaluate or analyze. We're just going to get some information. Now, I want to start with what worked, because you may or may not find that your brain can immediately go to everything that's wrong first. That is a negativity bias. It does not mean that it's actual truth. So maybe you could ask yourself, what surprised me the most about myself? Or what did I handle better than I expected that I would? Or where did I show up in a way that makes me really proud of myself, even if it was a hard situation? So if we can just take a few moments to acknowledge, our accomplishments, there's plenty of things to be proud of. Even if it's just that you survived the first half of the year, that's absolutely something to be proud of. But for myself, when I think of that, I even think of there was a period of time that was really, really stressful, and I handled it really well. I even had feedback from others that how calm I remained, which I think I appeared calm, and yet I had some internal stuff I was working through. But I really, even though it was a stressful period, I made sure that I took care of myself, and I put boundaries in place that I didn't before. So if you have an example like that, let's really reflect on that and recognize it. Now we get honest. So after we've looked at what did work well, let's also identify what really drained us in the first half of the year. So not necessarily like what went wrong, but what were the things that we were doing that didn't fill us, that didn't satisfy us, and instead actually resulted in an energy leak? What were the things that we were doing out of obligation or out of fear or out of anxiety and not actual alignment? And now this is a deeper one, but if you can get a little bit more clear on what is a story that you're telling yourself that you've carried so far this year that you don't need to carry with you into the second half, which really means like, okay, what belief or expectation did you have that perhaps is no longer serving you and you're ready to release? Now, I actually created a workbook for this mid-year reset that allows you to really go in depth with these types of questions, because we're not going to have time to dive into all of that right in this podcast episode. But I do have a workbook, and I'll get into that towards the end. So once we've had the look back period, I think the next step here is if we can really get clear on who we are now. So this is not yet what do I want to achieve. This is who am I in this present moment. For example, if you had to describe yourself in a few short words, what would those words be? if we are being radically honest with ourselves. The reason that this really matters, and I think is important for a mid-year reset, is because a lot of times our planning revolves around who we think we should be. And I think it's important to take a moment and look at who we actually are before we step into that intention setting place. For example, if you're still trying to achieve January's goals, but you're a different person now than you were in January, then we are no longer operating from a place of alignment. Now, once we've gotten a little bit more clear on who we are and where we're at right now and what alignment actually looks like for us, now we can start calling in and setting intentions for what we want the second half of the year to look like. Now, for me, this always involves getting really in touch with our feelings. And what I mean by our feelings is how we want to feel in the second half of the year. Okay. So if you could visualize yourself at the end of the year and what you want your life to look like, what you want it to feel like, what is in your environment, what's surrounding you. So it's always visualizing, getting really clear on what that feeling is, and then incorporating macro goals, right? Macro targets. So things that we really want to accomplish. And again, giving ourselves permission to shift and adjust if that's what happens. But getting clear on macro goals and then the micro goals that get us to the macro goal. So also getting really clear on those daily action steps. So I just want you all to know that you are not behind. You are allowed to be where you're at. If you have a voice in your head who's doing the math on what you've accomplished and what you haven't accomplished and what percentage of the way you are there, then let's just tell that voice, hey, thanks for checking in. Glad you're concerned, but I'm allowed to shift and adjust and still continue to move towards my desired state. And the second half is a real opportunity, right? Like I've said before several times in this episode, we have real data to work with. You had your January intentions and goals. So now we can know, okay, we have 6 months. Were those goals what I actually wanted? And what have I already achieved, or what am I working towards? And also what is no longer working for me and what is no longer important to me. Now, I do have a workbook. So if you want to go way more in depth and have journal prompts, questions to answer, actual action items here that allow you to have a mid-year reset where you look back, recalibrate, align, get the vision for the second half of the year, then I have created this for you. I use it myself. I think it's an incredibly powerful tool, and I'll link it in the show notes and or the description if you're on YouTube. It's $11.11. Make a wish. So if you're interested in that, the link will be there for you. All right. Well, personally, I want to congratulate you on the first 6 months of the year. Whether you were surviving or thriving, congratulations, you made it. And I really, really, really would love for all of you to get clear and intentional on the next 6 months so that you can truly live an aligned life. That's my goal for everyone in this world. Oh, what's making me cozy this week? So I would say nature. But I've actually been spending time traveling. I've been in the woods, I've been near a lake, I've also been hiking like I always do, and it's been really important for me lately to be in nature and have that way to regulate myself and my nervous system when things get a little bit stressful or a little bit overwhelming. And without fail, it is always a cozy activity. I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful, cozy week and second half of the year. Talk to you next week. Bye.